The station was alive with noise, metal clashing, voices rising, footsteps rushing. Yet in the middle of it all, she stood still. Her small suitcase leaned against her leg, its wheels smudged with dust from streets she didn't want to remember. A red scarf fluttered in her hand, trembling more than the wind could explain. She pressed her lips together, fighting the quiver. Her eyes followed the blur of strangers, each face another life escaping into trains that came and went without hesitation. She envied that certainty. The cracked watch on her wrist ticked too loud, mocking her. She turned it over in her palm, thumb brushing the spiderweb fracture on the glass. How much time had she already wasted? Someone brushed past, their bag striking her elbow. "Sorry," they muttered, already gone. She didn't answer. Her fingers tightened around the scarf until her knuckles paled. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. One glance at the name on the screen and her stomach dropped. She let it ring. Once, twice, then silence. The absence of the ringtone somehow felt heavier. She pulled the scarf close, holding it against her face for a second, breathing in faint traces of perfume long faded. It wasn't hers. That was the point. "Don't shake now," she whispered, voice nearly lost beneath the whistle of a departing train. But her hands didn't listen. They trembled as if the station itself was echoing inside her veins. Her gaze drifted upward, through the steam clouds and over the crowd, searching. Always searching. She wasn't looking for someone she knew. She was looking for something that would make sense of the silence she carried. A child nearby laughed, tugging at their mother's coat. The sound pierced her chest, fragile and cruel at once. She wanted to close her ears, but instead she stood straighter, as though bracing herself for a collision only she could see coming. The suitcase tipped when she shifted her weight. She caught it quickly, nails scratching against the worn handle. Inside was everything that mattered and nothing at all. Clothes, papers, one envelope she couldn't bring herself to open. The announcement board flickered, letters rearranging with a harsh buzz. She read the words without seeing them, her mind stuck in a loop of leave or stay, run or return, end or begin. The scarf slipped from her hand, falling to the cold floor. She stared at it, red against gray tile, alive against dead space. Her breath caught. For one suspended moment she forgot the trains, the voices, the weight of time. Then a shadow moved across it. A shoe stepped close. Too close. Her heart stilled. The scarf lay between them, and she dared not look up. The red scarf stayed on the floor, its edge caught beneath the stranger's shoe. She still didn't lift her gaze. Instead, she bent slowly, fingers brushing fabric that once belonged to someone she could never forget. Her father's voice returned, gravelly, patient, unshakable. "Hold on to what matters, even when the world tries to take it." He had said it years ago, when he tied the same scarf around her neck on a bitter winter morning. She was small then, her hands too weak to knot it properly, so he did it for her. His laugh had been warm enough to fight the cold. Now the laugh was gone, but the scarf remained, thinner, faded, and carrying the weight of every mile she had stumbled through since. Her throat tightened. She pulled it back into her hands, dust clinging to the fabric like memory refusing to leave. She folded it carefully, almost reverently, and placed it on her suitcase. A family passed her, arms full of gifts, faces shining with relief. A boy ran ahead, leaping into his father's embrace. She caught herself staring too long, caught in the sharp ache of absence. No one waited for her at the end of any train. No arms open, no voices calling her name. Just empty rooms and letters unopened. The cracked watch ticked again, louder now. She traced the fracture with her fingertip. She had bought it with her first paycheck, back when she believed time could be owned, controlled, bent to her ambition. Back when quitting wasn't even a thought. But time had turned on her, cruel and mocking, until even victory tasted like ash. Her phone buzzed once more. She silenced it without looking. The weight of debt, of promises broken, of faces she couldn't face. It all pressed into her chest until breathing felt like betrayal. And yet there was that shadow, still near, still unmoving. She could feel the stranger's attention not as intrusion, but as something deliberate, quiet, measured. A silence that wasn't empty but chosen. She risked a glance, only enough to catch the outline of his coat, the sharpness of his stance. Not looking at her, yet not looking away either. He was waiting. For what, she didn't know. Her pulse quickened. She gripped the suitcase handle, knuckles aching, ready to walk toward the platform. To leave everything and everyone. To vanish. But her legs froze. Something in the scarf, something in the stranger's stillness, something in the unspoken moment made her stop. The announcement board flickered again. Delay. Departure pushed back. The universe itself asking her to wait. She turned slightly, lips trembling into a smile she didn't mean, or maybe didn't understand. The stranger's shadow shifted, and she wondered just for an instant. Was this the beginning or the trap? The delay announcement faded into static, swallowed by the restless hum of the station. She stayed still, scarf in hand, her breath uneven. The stranger shifted again, just enough for her eyes to catch what they weren't meant to. His shoes, worn down at the edges, leather peeling like bark stripped from an old tree. Not careless used. Walked too far, maybe run from too much. Beside his boot, a folded ticket jutted from his coat pocket, edges softened, corners torn. A traveler not at home anywhere. Her gaze rose higher, unintentional. A wallet slipped as he reached for something. It fell open just enough. She saw a photograph, faded at the edges, tucked carefully, as though the world might rip it away if he wasn't careful. A girl in the picture smiled, hair tied back, a warmth that didn't match the man's silence. She swallowed hard. The scarf in her hand tightened. The lights above flickered, and with them came the sound of rain, hesitant at first, then harder, drumming against the station roof. Water ran in rivulets down the glass panes, warping the view outside. Her chest mirrored it, pressure rising, blurring what was once clear. She needed to leave. To take the train, the suitcase, the envelope waiting inside it. But the pull, the silence beside her, drew tighter than obligation. Why him? Why now? The cracked watch ticked louder, drowning the station's noise. She imagined smashing it against the floor, stopping time before it dragged her any further. But her hand only brushed it, weak with indecision. Another family rushed past, laughing as the rain smeared their coats. They ran like life was certain. She couldn't remember what that felt like. Her eyes drifted back. He hadn't moved far. His jaw clenched once, barely, as if swallowing words he wouldn't risk giving away. And yet he knew she was watching. She felt it in her skin. Is this fate? Or is it a trap? The scarf slipped again, this time not to the floor but against her lips. She pressed it there, hiding the trembling. Inside a voice rose. Her father's again. Not everyone who stands beside you is there to save you. Still she stayed. The rain thickened, thunder low in the distance. The departures board stuttered once more, uncertain, like it couldn't decide if trains were leaving at all. Her suitcase weighed against her leg. His shadow stayed rooted. She turned slightly, testing his silence, waiting for it to break. It didn't. Her pulse surged, torn between running and staying, escape and collision. The scarf burned red in her palm. The photograph's ghost still lingered in her eyes. And as thunder rolled again, the question sharpened. Was she about to find an ally? Or the reason she never left? Her fingers tightened on the suitcase handle until the veins on her wrist rose sharp against her skin. The scarf lay across it, red against black, trembling with each uneven breath she took. She told herself to move, to walk, to vanish into the train like smoke into night air. Her shoes scraped against the tile, one step forward, another. But her body betrayed her. She stopped, turning for one last look. The stranger was there. Still. And in his hand, her scarf. Her chest hollowed. She hadn't even noticed it slip again, as though it wanted to leave her just as much as everything else had. But he held it now, not offering, not stealing. Simply holding. His thumb brushed the edge, slow, deliberate, like someone reading a language hidden in threads. The sound of rain filled the silence between them. A child tugged at her mother's arm nearby, whispering, "Why is she crying?" The mother hushed her, pulling the child away. She lifted a hand to her cheek, startled to find it wet, not just rain but tears betraying her. Her throat closed, words locked inside. He didn't speak either. He only raised the scarf slightly, enough to show it wasn't forgotten. Some people carry more than just bags, she heard herself whisper, barely audible even to her own ears. They carry silence. Her words drifted into the station, swallowed by footsteps and coughs. Yet his head tilted, as though he caught every syllable. His eyes, when they finally rose to hers, were not searching, not demanding. They were mirrors, showing her the exhaustion she tried to bury. A group of businessmen passed, glancing at her suitcase, her tears, her stillness. One muttered, "Pathetic." Another shook his head. She lowered her gaze, shame heating her skin. Society always judged the ones who stopped moving. Her knees trembled. She almost dropped the suitcase, almost crumpled with it onto the cold floor. Her father's voice returned, not gentle this time but stern. "If you break, the world won't wait for you to heal." The scarf trembled in his hand again, the fabric alive in the draft from a departing train. Her watch ticked louder, mocking her pause, her weakness. She hated the sound, but still she couldn't run. One step. That's all she needed. Toward him or away, either would end this torment. But she stood frozen. His silence pressed against her chest, louder than any words. The scarf was not just cloth anymore. It was a choice, a weight, a question. And when he finally lowered it, not giving it back, not letting it go, the world seemed to stop with it. The platform lights flickered. Her heart broke open, quietly, invisibly, while everything else remained unanswered. The scarf trembled in his hand, but this time his grip tightened, as though letting go meant losing something more than fabric. She forced her breath steady, though each inhale scraped like glass. Then as he shifted his coat, the wallet slipped again. The photograph stared up at her, clearer now in the flicker of the station light. A girl, smiling, hair tied back, the same scarf around her shoulders. Her chest constricted. He bent, retrieving it swiftly, but not before their eyes locked. Not before she understood. The scarf had not been hers to keep. It had belonged to someone else. Someone gone. Her father's voice returned, sharp and haunting. "Hold on to what matters, even when the world tries to take it." But this scarf had already been taken once from him. She had only been holding a ghost. Thunder cracked outside, rattling the glass walls of the station. She wanted to flee, yet her legs held ground. He finally spoke, his voice low, careful. "She wore it the last day I saw her." The words cut deeper than any blade. The scarf burned hot in her hand now, no longer comfort but confession. And then the second blow. Her phone vibrated again. This time she answered. A clipped voice on the other end. "Miss Rahim? Your interview delayed but not cancelled. The owner himself will be waiting. You have 1 hour." The call ended. Silence roared louder. Her gaze lifted to him, to the worn shoes, the photograph, the silence that had weighed heavier than words. "Owner." The scarf slipped from her grip once more, pooling between them like blood on marble. She shook her head slowly, unable to form the thought, yet knowing. The man holding her grief was the same man holding her future. The cracked watch on her wrist ticked again, cruel in its reminder. How much time had she already wasted? And then, like a loop closing on itself, his eyes fell on her wrist. "You should fix that watch," he said softly. Her breath hitched. The same words her father once told her years ago when the glass first cracked. The same words she had ignored. Time wasn't broken. She was. The world spun around her, but something inside her stilled. There was no undoing what she now knew. No return to being unseen, untouched by him. The platform doors hissed open. A path waited, not to a train, but to the room where her decision would chain her fate to his. She lifted the suitcase. Her body trembled. And without looking back, she stepped toward it. Into the choice that would change everything. The station had emptied, yet the air still carried its chaos, voices lingering like ghosts, rain dripping steady on the roof. She stood inside the interview room now, suitcase by her side, the scarf folded neatly across the table between them. The cracked watch ticked faintly on her wrist, the sound louder in the silence they shared. He sat opposite, no longer just a stranger. The weight of ownership, of power, of grief, hung heavy in the shape of his shoulders. The photograph was tucked back in his wallet, but its shadow was everywhere. Her throat tightened. Why me? He didn't flinch. Because you remind me of her. His voice broke only slightly, a fissure quickly sealed. Not in your face. Not in your walk. In the way you carry silence. Her breath caught. She had wanted opportunity, not inheritance. A door opening, not a grave passed into her hands. Yet here it was, the offer wrapped in loss. He slid the scarf forward, closer to her. It doesn't belong to me anymore. Take it. Begin again. Her fingers hovered, trembling. She remembered her father's words. Hold on to what matters, even when the world tries to take it. But maybe, just maybe, letting go mattered too. Her eyes burned as she pushed the scarf back across the table. No. It was hers. Let it stay hers. For a moment his mask cracked, pain, recognition, maybe even respect. Then he leaned back, exhaling like someone who hadn't breathed in years. The watch ticked again. She unclasped it, placed it beside the scarf. The fracture in its glass caught the light, a wound glimmering silver. And this, she whispered. I won't carry broken time anymore. The objects lay together now, his loss and hers, side by side, untouchable, almost sacred. He studied her, not as a candidate, not as a savior, but as something else entirely. A mirror that refused to shatter for him. His eyes softened, though his words stayed sharp. You'll have the job, he said finally. Not because you earned it. Because you wouldn't take what wasn't yours. She swallowed the lump in her throat. This was not triumph. It was something stranger, heavier, freer. When she stood, suitcase in hand, the rain had eased. Through the glass, light leaked into the sky, thin and pale but certain. At the doorway she looked back once more. He was still at the table, head bowed, the scarf between his hands like a prayer unfinished. The same station that had swallowed her hours ago now seemed different. She was no longer the girl waiting to be chosen, waiting for someone to hold her silence. She had chosen instead to leave, to carry nothing that wasn't hers. Her steps echoed through the corridor, each one steadier than the last. And when the world asked, wordless and vast, what she had gained, she answered with nothing but breath, raw and new. Because not every stranger you help is meant to stay. But some leave you changed forever. The city felt different when she stepped out of the station. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, a thin veil over the streets, as though the sky was tired but unwilling to stop. She pulled her coat tighter and walked without hurry. For once there was no train to chase, no clock dictating every breath. Her suitcase rolled quietly behind her, wheels scraping over uneven pavement. She didn't mind the sound. It reminded her she was moving. Forward, not back. Later that night, in a small rented room, she set the suitcase down in the corner. She unpacked only what she needed. A shirt, a notebook, a cup for tea. The rest could wait. On the desk by the window, a drawer sat half open. Inside, the cracked watch rested. She had placed it there deliberately, beside a small folded piece of paper she never dared open. Its broken glass no longer mocked her. It reflected what it was meant to. Something finished, something left behind. The scarf was not there. She hadn't carried it away. Some things belonged to memory, not possession. She let it rest where it belonged, with him, with her, with the ghosts of their unspoken stories. She leaned against the window, forehead against cool glass, watching raindrops trail like veins across the night. Her reflection stared back, not hardened, not healed, but steadier. Her father's voice drifted again, softer this time, as though carried by the rain. Hold on to what matters. She closed her eyes. Maybe holding on didn't always mean keeping. It could mean remembering, respecting, recognizing when to let go. Sometimes love is not romance, she whispered into the empty room. It's recognition. The words lingered, filling the silence like warmth, like the steam of tea rising from a forgotten cup. Somewhere in the city, he was still sitting with the scarf, still tied to his own memories. She didn't know if their paths would cross again. Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't. The thought didn't ache as much as it once might have. Outside, thunder rolled faintly, distant now, more like a reminder than a threat. She pressed her palm to the glass, feeling the coolness meet her skin. The world stretched ahead, vast and unsolved, waiting for her to carve out her place. And as the rain slowed to silence, she allowed herself a fragile smile. Not of victory, not of certainty, just survival, just breath. Because sometimes the most dangerous journey isn't leaving or staying. It's choosing what you refuse to carry,